Welcome to the 20-Minute Mentors podcast. Recorded in Clan by Perth Wing Ed Kun Welling King Droth Kun Lands and Go Yasili Go. Here's your hosts. Hi, welcome to the 20-Minute Mentor podcast. I'm your host, Matt.
And this is Mike, the co-host, and welcome to our first episode. So what's on the agenda today, Matt?
Yeah, it's the first episode. It's a bit scary, isn't it? I guess really we should probably begin with a bit of an introduction to ourselves, really. I'm Matt. I've worked in different industries across telecoms, communication and finance for about 12 years now. Across that, I've had some, incredible experiences, and I really wanted to build out this podcast because a lot of the experiences I had in my time in industry has been, looking at a concept that's been given to me and trying to work out what worked and what didn't work, and kind of applying the things that I think worked and removing the things that didn't. So I guess that's me in a nutshell, really. Over to you, Mike.
Oh yeah, that's a very impressive introduction. I wish I had the same. But yeah, as for myself, educational background-wise, I studied political science, but none of it I ever used after I graduated from college. Went on to manage the family business and had some own small businesses myself. Then the pandemic hit, so which prompted me to join the customer service industry because that was when remote work started to had like a boom in the market, especially for myself. I'm originally from the Philippines, but I'm currently residing in Australia. And from customer service, I eventually jumped on to the product field, and that's where I met you in our previous company. And yeah, that's basically me in a nutshell. Nothing so
Wow.
fancy. Yeah, unlike yours.
I think it sounds like it's, but from that, you have a lot more experience, right? I think one of the purposes of why we're doing this is also to show that experience isn't something which always comes from education and always comes from like a particular work style. Like when we compare our two backgrounds, I've been in sort of product and in development for, like I said, nearly 12 years now. And before that, I was in a very different industry where, it was all about doing as you were told and kind of building that up. And we'll touch on that in a later episode. But I feel like, the experience from running your own business and or running the family business, is much more, it gives you a lot more of those life skills than, you realize at the minute.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely true. There are some skills and transferable skills that you learn from running your own business that you can definitely apply when you join the corporate world. One of those would be, stakeholder management, or at least trying to talk with your customers, because that's one of the things that I heavily relied on when I joined the customer service. So basically, my experience from running the a business. So we sold liquefied petroleum gas and basically retailed it in smaller packages because unlike the rest of the Western world where you guys have like your own lines of gas, in the Philippines we have like small containers for it because we don't have a centralized line of stuff in houses. So dealing with customers from all walks of life, that definitely helped me in my customer service role.
That's really cool. And I guess a good place to start is kind of where did the idea of this podcast come from? And it's it's a tricky one. It's something that's been playing on my mind for a while. So we've already kind of touched on it here, which I thought would be a good segue to jump straight into. So you everybody goes to school or to college, or maybe if you're very lucky, go on to university. And when you kind of leave that heavy education world, you're kind of pushed into like a corporate world. Now, if you're like yourself, you're able to go into a family business, and that's really cool. And you learn very quickly what it takes to run and look after a family business. Many other people, education ends and then the world's on their shoulders to kind of get a job. And you don't really have that guidance, or maybe you're lucky and you've got an older sibling who can direct you a little bit and help you. But no one is out there giving you that guidance to say, this is how you write a CV, or this is where to put that CV to actually help you get a job. These are the things that you can say during an interview, or this is how you should act during an interview. And it's all skills that really you learn by trying and failing over and over again. And also, what you want to try and cover is things that you'll see later in your career. So you might be looking to develop yourself. I know a lot of my career over the past 5 to 6 years has been, I understand my industry, but how do I get better at it? And what are the concepts I can apply that, can be brought into the industry? So that's kind of why we've brought this podcast together. The purpose of it really is to condense big concepts like how to build a CV, what information are recruiters looking for, where to put your CV, what do self-help books really teach you, and how can you actually apply those things, and take them into 20-minute chunks. And that's kind of what we want to try and do. So that craziness of, one of the books I read quite recently actually was High Performing Teams. And at a high level, like, that's a really cool statement. But I don't think anyone actually knows what that means. And that's where I want to kind of work through it as a group, and you and I, and actually dig into these things and work out, day on day, what can you do to kind of position yourself as to, what can you do to actually put yourself in that mindset and kind of apply some of those things. I think if we use a live example though, Mikey, so what was the last book that you read, or audiobook that you read?
Yeah, for my case, as far as I remember, the last ebook that I read was How to Talk to Anyone, 92 Little Tricks for Big Success in Relationships by Lyle Lowndes. I hope I didn't butcher the name of the author. So it's not really a business book, but I found it really useful in, business interactions and workplace interactions. Because as what you've said, there's tons of self-help books and, college textbooks included, that really provide you a high level knowledge. But when it comes to how to actually use that knowledge into how you deal with daily life, it's actually up to the person as to how to use that knowledge and apply it, and or basically how to interpret that knowledge as well. So yeah, I guess that's where we come in, and we use our real life experience and try to interpret it in a layman's term as possible, that everyone can easily digest in quick 20-minute episodes or maybe more.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail right in the head there. I think that's it, is, when you read something or you listen to a podcast, or it might even be an audiobook. I mean, I've been pretty guilty of that myself, where, I've gone out for a walk, and instead of sitting down and reading a book, I've stuck the audiobook on. It's really up to you as a person to understand what concepts they're trying to put forward in that book and how to actually apply them. And that's where we want to help, because I feel like, everyone can do with a little bit of coaching and mentoring and breaking down some of these big, scary concepts. And I think you're right. We'll aim for 20 minutes. We'll see where we end up on that. We want to try and make these digestible, so something you can stick on when you're, out for a walk or maybe on your commute. And the reason behind the name, the reason we went for mentors rather than anything else, is because we want to keep this as a fun conversation, and, trying to find a name that matched that. Mentors are friends. And I think that's probably the best way the best way we could put that idea together. So that's what we're about. I'm really excited to get started. I know that you've already had a few established podcasts in the past, Mikey. So I relying on you heavily for your sort of technical and sound expertise.
But I wouldn't really call it, established. That was a one-off project. And to be honest, going back to the title of the show, and I think it really resonates between the both of us, because the dynamics of, let's say, our relationship started with you being my mentor, being my manager in our previous workplace. And when we say the word mentor, the first thing that comes to the mind of a person is it usually is associated with, a place of authority. But to be honest, a mentor really is just a friend, like an advisor that, shares your life experiences with you and helps you grow and guide. And that's what I hope we can achieve in this podcast. Like, become advisors, become friends to our listeners, and really connect to that average Joe that is struggling, or perhaps looking for their whys or statement of purpose in their life. And we hope we can both achieve that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm really excited to get started, and I I know that you are too. I know we kind of spoke about this over the last couple of weeks or so, but I'm really excited to kind of get running, try some of these concepts out, and we'll encourage everyone who's listening to feed back to us. And if there is a problem that you're suffering from, or maybe there's a concept that you've been exploring at work that you don't understand, there will be links to get in touch with us, and we can always we can always jump on that and try and work out how we get that concept or that idea that you're working on and make more sense of it for you. So as much as it is a conversation between us two, we also want to make it as interactive and conversational between the people listening to.
Oh yeah, for sure. While we do have our own, a pool or pot of life experiences, I do acknowledge that we don't hold all of the knowledge in the universe. So yeah, further down the line, we might be taking in some guests, and not sure how we can set this up, but we can also try to get some comments or questions from our listeners, and we can do like live Q&A sessions, because I find that in some other podcasts nowadays they kind of do that Q&A episodes, which I think is very useful. I myself listen to those Q&A episodes because it's where you get the odd questions that you didn't think
Mm.
you really wanted to ask, but deep inside you had that question within yourself as well, and then you hear someone else ask it, and hey, you know what, I kind of relate to that question, and I'm glad that this dude asked it, and this you know author or host answered it. So we're hoping to kind of achieve the same as well in here.
That's a good point, that actually, the odd questions. I think it's a good place to end this episode on, but what's the oddest question you've been asked during an interview?
Oh, interview.
Yeah. While you're
Mm,
thinking, I'll go for mine. So while I was interviewing for, I won't name the company, but the one of the interview questions was, "What is your favorite dinosaur?" And I still have no idea how that related at all to the interview itself, to the role I was going for, to anything. My answer was Triceratops. I got offered the role. I don't know if they were hiring exclusive Triceratops fans or not. But that was probably the strangest interview question I've ever had. Is, can you tell me what your favorite dinosaur is and why? So yeah, that's definitely the strangest one I've come across in my career.
wow,
But you,
that's really odd. And I mean, well, while I was listening to him, also I'm thinking at the back of my head what odd questions I've received in the past. I haven't really been in the job search market for um, almost a year in April. So I wouldn't really say that this question was asked in an interview for a job application, but I do remember getting an odd question while I was interviewing for a promotion back in my previous company. The question was, if there was a needle in a haystack, how would you find it? Give me three ways. And then I didn't really prepare for that because I was like preparing for like what type of feedback model I would use, what type of coaching model I would use, because that was a promotion for a team leader position. So when
mm,
I got asked that question, like, how do you find a needle in a haystack? Give me three answers. I only had one answer in mind, and that was, no, I'm not going to waste my time looking for that needle in a haystack. I'm just going to go out and buy a new one. And then the interview, because that's usually how it goes, right? Like think outside of the box, and then yeah, literally outside of the box. I'm not going to go in there and stay, invest all my hours looking for something that's close to impossible. I'm just going to go buy
mm.
a new one. And I think my answer kind of threw off the interviewer as well, because he kind of changed the rules mid game. Oh no, 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 no!
Oh,
You're not allowed to use that. There's that only one needle left in the whole world. I mean, though that's highly impossible. But yeah, that was a
mm.
fun experience, and I
Wow.
got the role actually.
Oh,
So maybe it was because of that as well.
yeah. My mind immediately went to set fire to the haystack. I don't know if that would work or not.
Mm, it would probably work, but it will cause so much collateral damage,
I'll be more
I
careful with the needles
guess.
next time.
After that interview, I try to think of ways that you can actually do that, and there's actually multiple ways. Like you can use a magnet if you have
Mm,
one handy, or you can put all the hay in like a drum of water, and hopefully the needle will go to the bottom because it's heavier than hay, or maybe the other way around. Not sure how the physics is going to go there, but there's actually a lot of ways, and they're probably looking for ingenious ways as to how to find that needle in a haystack. I just went, I'll just go buy a new one. And maybe that answer came from my entrepreneurial background as well. Like, because if you're running a business, and there is going to be a point where it's going to be futile to just go and try save something, so just go ahead and start a new one. Because in my life we've had multiple failed businesses, so instead of injecting more capital to it, we just abandoned it, called it quits, started a new one, and hope it
Mm.
goes well. And I guess that's where it came from. So yeah, going back to that real life experience translating into how you can perform in the workplace, there's
Mm.
definitely lots of that in the future.
No, I like that. I also like that we both went different ways there. You went for buy a new one, and I went for destruction. I think that probably says a lot about our characters.
Yeah, I wonder how that also plays out for games or gameplay style, though. So, but yeah, uh, topic for another episode.
Cool. Well, I think we've nearly hit the 20-minute mark for this one.
Yeah, all right. And I think we're closing in on our promised 20-minute episodes. So, having said that, thank you so much for listening to the quick introduction episode. And I hope you enjoyed it. Matt, anything to say?
Yeah, as from me, exactly that. So yeah, I thank you for joining us for the first episode. A bit less structured than what our episodes are going to be going forward, but a good sort of a good use of time to kind of show you who we are, what to kind of expect from the podcast that we're doing, and yeah, just a really big thank you from me for joining us for our first episode. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, our contact details will be in the podcast link. So feel free to pass on your feedback, ideas for further episodes. We're always listening and always happy to help out.
Yes, true to that. And with that, we are going to say farewell, but see you next time.